Go ahead, Shirley.
Okay, before we go to that, just in case you want to know what's happening with Corona in Israel, the news is good. The total number of cases is 15,208 confirmed. 7,747 people recovered. Only 210 fatalities. This is all due to some luck because it's a country with young people. Israel is one of the countries in the world that have the youngest population. It's warm, and that helps too. They closed the borders earlier than a lot of countries, and there are draconian laws. So for Yom Ha'atzmaut, right now, they are all under curfew. Pesach was under curfew. There are places that are under curfew all the time, but they are now relaxing the economy because the curve has been flattened. So that's good news about Corona. That's all I wanted to mention about that. So coming to the Israel celebration, before we start, I just like to do the Shechianu blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. I guess you're muted. You can't say amen. Okay. So now I'll tell you what my objective is. I know so much, my head is full of it, but you may not be interested. I plan on a 15 minutes presentation, and the rest, please ask as many questions so that we answer what your questions are, either about what I said or whatever else you want to ask about. So when we start, I'm going to be in my small square up there, and I've asked Meir to put up my presentation, which is only 3 slides. And I'm only going to scratch the surface, but make notes if you want. You can ask questions about anything. Thank you, Meir. Okay, so the first slide, does everybody see the slide?
Yes, yes.
Can you read it? Is it readable?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, eons ago, on December 2018, Benjamin Netanyahu called for early elections. They were supposed to be in November 2019. In February, surprise, surprise, a new party was formed. So all of a sudden, he had some new opposition. Blue and White was cobbled together from 3 other parties, 3 former generals from the army, and 1 former party, Yesh Atid. And then there were elections. On April the 9th, the first ones. Okay, what happened on April the 9th? Surprise, surprise, this young party running against Netanyahu was able to equal it. So what happened was Likud, if you can see there, 35-35, Likud and Blue and White got the same numbers. And what happened was that they got 60-60. Now you see that 61 number? 61 is needed for a majority. 60 doesn't cut it. So with 60 and with 60, neither could create a government. So a new election was called. Actually, the election was called a bit prematurely by Netanyahu, who got the Arab parties to go with him because they were not happy with the results. And what they agreed was to disperse the Knesset and to go for new elections. which was not fair because blue and white was supposed to get the right to create a government, but really it doesn't matter because blue and white didn't have 61 anyway. So they couldn't have done it, but they were entitled to do it, but they didn't. Just to let you know that in elections, all kinds of things are done that are funny. So when were the new elections? They were September 17. And what were the results? Blue and white got more than Likud. Blue and white got 33 and Likud got 31. But as you know, in Israel, and I have it here, I didn't want to create any charts to show you. But if you have questions, I have it all. In Israel, it's the bloc that decides. 61. Obviously, 35-35 is not 60-60, and 33-31 is not either. So what happened in September, it was 57-55, but 57 is not enough. On one side was the Likud and the religious parties. On the other side was what's called the left, but it's not real, the center and the left and the Arab parties together were not enough either. So you see the 8th number there in September. So what happened was one party, which is Lieberman's Israel Beitenu, did not want to join either one, which caused a complete impossibility again to create a government. And there we go to the third election. The third election was on March 2nd to 2020. It was very bitter. It was very tough. There was so much schmutz thrown from all sides. You have no idea. By the time we all got to the third election, we were exhausted, just those watching.
Get what on?
Sound.
I pushed in and it came on.
Okay, so in this case, Likud got more, got 36, black and white, blue and white got 33. Sorry, blue and white got 33. But what happened was this Lieberman, remember the 8 that you saw there, decided to go with the center left, which gave Gantz the 61 seats in the Knesset. And the president gave him the mandate to form a government. Because what the right had was only 58 seats. So it was actually 62 seats that Gantz had, but one person crossed the floor to Likud, so that gave them 58-61. Okay, so you might think that's it. There's going to be a government because Gantz could have created a government, but it's not so simple, right, in Israel? So to form a government, you have to go to the Knesset, and what happened was the leader of the Knesset, Yuli Edelstein from Likud, shut down the Knesset. It's known that he was required to do so by Netanyahu, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, what happened, he was asked to shut down the Knesset, he did, and then there were urgent requests from all kinds of organizations and so on to the Supreme Court of Israel to reopen the Knesset. And the Supreme Court of Israel got involved.
We lost Shirley. No, you don't. Somebody muted her.
I don't know who, I cannot hear her.
Shirley,
Shirley,
can.
could you unmute yourself?
Everyone else mute themselves.
Mute, mute.
Okay, so where did you lose me? Did you lose me where Yuli Edelstein shut down the Knesset?
Yes.
Asked by Netanyahu. Then the Supreme Court of Israel told Edelstein he must open the Knesset. He said that his conscience doesn't let him do that. So he resigned. And Blue and White on its own restarts the Knesset because they have 61. Is that enough drama for you? Okay, I want, Mayor, let's go to the next one. Take notes if you have questions, take notes. So the next one, so what happened in this drama? So at this point, Gantz is expected to table laws preventing an individual under indictment from becoming prime minister. Obviously, Benjamin Netanyahu. And it was going to happen because he had the 61. But big, huge surprise, unbelievable, you wouldn't expect this. And this is a big shock in Israel, was Gantz is elected leader of the Knesset. He chose not to be prime minister. He chose to be elected leader of the Knesset with the support of the Likud bloc following secret negotiations to form a joint emergency government because of COVID-19. So he said, this situation requires an emergency government, and he was already doing negotiations with Likud, and they agreed that he would be the leader of the Knesset. But what that caused was the Blue and White broke apart. So from the 33 that he had, did he have 30? On the third, let me see, how much did he have? He had 33 again. So from the 33, he ended up only with 15. Only one of the generals, Gabi Ashkenazi, went with him, which means that he didn't have any more 33, the leverage from the 33. He only had 15. A little later on, Labor and Gesher joined the emergency government as well. And then started something absolutely excruciating, is an agreement. Now, I do have the agreement. If you see me, I don't know if you see me, it's 14 pages in Hebrew. It is so convoluted and complex, you wouldn't believe. But there is an agreement. And here's what the agreement is going to say. Before that, let me just say that 60% of Israelis, right, left, and center, I'm not sure how many from which side, said that it's good that there is a government given COVID-19, which they call HaKorona. But 60% said they do not believe what you'll see in a minute, that Netanyahu is going to respect the agreement. Okay, let's go to the last page, which is the agreement. As I mentioned, it's complex, difficult to implement, even iffy. I added iffy because of the bottom that I added today. So Netanyahu is prime minister for 1.5 years. Gantz follows as prime minister for 1.5 years. Same number of ministers. Now here's the problem. Because remember, I told you that Gantz was left only with 15. And then Labor joined, so you have 2 more, and Gesher is 1 more. So you have in total 18 who are going to get the same number of ministers as the other bloc. So they had to create many ministries. They had to create 36 ministries and sub-ministries and all kinds, in total about 52 or 53 offices and things, and 2 places, 2 residences for the prime ministers from the beginning, both of them to be sworn in at the same time at the beginning. And just to mention here, despite the fact that at the beginning people were very happy, 60% at least were happy that finally there is a government, as all this high spending came out, and people are still in trouble because unemployment is actually very high in Israel, higher than here. They have about 25% unemployment, and people are getting hard hit, independents and businesses and individuals. And now there is some dissatisfaction with this complete waste of billions of shekels. Although, you know what they're saying, those who want to say it's okay, they say that another election would have cost billions of shekels too. So I don't know if it would equal, but anyway, there is some dissatisfaction now about the agreement. What else is agreed upon? So each one has veto over the other in most things, which is conflict driven and paralysis given. Because during the first year and a half, Gantz has veto over what Netanyahu wants to do. During the second year and a half, Netanyahu has veto over what he wants to do. I'm going to take a little bit of tea. So people don't expect a lot really to happen, but at least there is a government. Now, what took so long was the extremely complex legalistic clauses that were put in place to ensure the implementation of the agreement. And it was on both sides. Netanyahu asked for changes upon changes. Every day there was, oh, we need to fix this. And Gantz also had his requirements. So what were Gantz's requirements? To ensure that the agreement will, that he will get the rotation, the year and a half, and that he cannot be basically earlier or whenever, if Netanyahu calls for elections or whatever happens. And I cannot tell you how complex that agreement is. It also implicated the Supreme Court, because obviously there were going to be requests of the Supreme Court nobody even knew what. They just looked at scenarios. What could happen? What could each side do to the other side to screw them? So it was basically many lawyers on both sides working day and night on this. But finally, this agreement happened. And I will mention that one of the things that cannot be vetoed, and this was a concession on the part of Gantz, and he had there all these caveats put in, But the point is he cannot veto in July the Likud tabling annexation of the West Bank. In what format, how, and is not said and not fixed in the agreement. But the agreement says that everything else can be vetoed, but tabling the annexation cannot be vetoed. What can be vetoed there will be some details. So that is a very big disappointment on the left in Israel. And it's something that makes people on the religious right happy, but they are also looking at it with trepidation because they're very concerned that it will be very diluted. And even Pompeo from the United States was going a little bit back and saying, well, you know, you guys are going to have to figure it out, and so on and so forth, and there are other requirements. So nobody is happy about the annexation, but it's going to be a big issue. So here's the big bombshell. It's the last 3 lines, and this happened today, and I will explain it. It says, if Netanyahu is not allowed to be prime minister, this is what it says in the agreement. If Netanyahu himself is not allowed to be prime minister by the courts, they go to a 4th election. So why is this a hot potato? This is a hot potato because Netanyahu is being indicted for bribery and corruption in 3 big files, and 1 to come. And for quite a while during the elections, there were requests of the Supreme Court to give its decree whether Netanyahu can be prime minister while he is indicted and while there will be a trial of him starting in May. Now, the law in Israel is that a minister under indictment cannot continue. But the law did not envision that there ever would be a prime minister under indictment. So the law doesn't say anything about that. There were applications, and the Supreme Court time and again came back and said, it's not something that needs to be dealt with because it's not in the realm of the possible. Because we don't see that Netanyahu, the first time, has enough votes to become prime minister. The second one, we don't see that Netanyahu, because he returned the mandate to the president during the second one. And on the third, here, all of a sudden, it seems like there's an agreement that Netanyahu might become prime minister. So again, there's a variety of organizations that time and again go to the Supreme Court not to allow Netanyahu to be prime minister because of bribery and corruption. Now, this is not here, but I'll finish with this. So both Likud and Netanyahu and Gantz and Blue and White went to the Supreme Court today and requested, all this happened today, before the evening of Yom Ha'atzmaut. Things happen there last minute a lot of the time. So both Netanyahu and Gantz went to the Supreme Court to ask that this not be discussed because Netanyahu said it's not fair because he was elected in the elections. Likud was elected, and the way the elections were done for Likud, it is Netanyahu is the Likud, and Likud is Netanyahu, and everybody who voted for Likud voted for Netanyahu. So in practice, the claim is that the Supreme Court should not disregard the will of the people who elected Likud's Netanyahu to be prime minister, and they should throw out of court this request. Gantz also requested that Netanyahu not be disallowed, and their claim is that it is a very special situation in Israel today with COVID-19, and because of the fragility of the situation, it should be disregarded. Now, the Supreme Court has decided to take the case now because there is an agreement, and they, as much as this hot potato was something they didn't want to deal with, as much as this was something they didn't want to deal with, they have no choice. So they decided to create the biggest number of judges, which is 11 judges. The top 11 judges of the Supreme Court are going to sit. What does table mean? Table is when you, so Bob is saying to Juliana and everybody, I don't know English, so I don't know what table means, but I hope you understand what's going on. So the Supreme Court might, and this is my invention now, everything I've said until now is facts, facts, facts. But in the past month or so, the Supreme Court, who's being attacked continuously, has started opening the court to the public to show how they are running the show, so that nobody can say that they are not doing things in an open and fair fashion. Now, they haven't said anything about this. This is a Shirley Segev thing. I expect that we are going to be able to zoom in and see the ruling being discussed, because it has to be given, if I'm not mistaken, next week. It's going to be done Sunday and Monday. I could be wrong here, but it's at the beginning of next week. It's not like something that's going to take a long time. They have to give an answer. Can he be part of this agreement or not? So please don't ask me what the Supreme Court will rule. I am totally frozen about this question. On the one hand, I think they cannot, given the past, let him. On the other hand, I think Gantz is right. The situation is not a normal time. Who knows what they're going to rule? But if they do not allow him, then all this 14-page agreement that I'm not going to take you through is dead.